Welcome to From the Mezzanine, a film podcast. We're two guys from the Midwest who love all things film. We are not professionals. We don't speak on behalf of a larger website. And we're not here to sell you men's razors and meal kits. Each week, we put our own money on the line to tell you what is the best and the worst in theaters, on streaming, and on video on demand.
This presentation contains copyrighted materials that have been used under the fair use provisions of U.S. copyright law. Further use, duplication, or distribution is prohibited. That's for you, Showtime, you motherfuckers, coming after this little influential film podcast called From the Mezzanine, like our opinion actually matters. Yeah, for those who tried to check out our last week episode about the Batman, it might have been a little difficult because we had to battle through the copyright system of YouTube because Showtime took issue with our use of a trailer for a show that we're not even going to mention. But Matt had to deal with a lot of crap to get it figured out so that that video could be seen by the wide world. And thank you to everyone who did check it out. What was that like for you, Matt? What do you have to say to Showtime?
Yeah, it was clearly some sort of algorithm and that did it, I think. And the process to get the video put back up was very, very arduous and pointlessly long. And, there have been many YouTube creators who have spoken out about this bullshit, and it affects like everyone from us all the way up to like huge, million follower creators. And it's almost like YouTube is willfully not doing anything about it.
Yeah. They know that the system's broken, and that's a feature. It works for them that this thing doesn't work in any way as intended. So, first time for everything. Luckily we didn't actually receive a copyright strike, which would eventually lead to the end of what we're doing here. Though it'd be pretty ridiculous because we only use promotional material that is accessible to everybody, and Disney doesn't take any issue with what we do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're pretty inconsequential. It's not like we're stealing the food out of their children's mouths with what we're doing here. In fact, we're bringing greater awareness to quite a bit of what is out there because, like we've pointed out many times, it's a vast sea, and it's pretty, incomprehensible to most people to even know what is worth checking out, because it's just such a slog to, figure out what's shit, what's actually worth spending your time on, and even what is worth just having on as noise. It's a wide world out there, and they're pretty stupid to come after us in that way. Especially since it solved itself eventually. It almost seemed like it was just kind of like a finger snap and it was just back. But
yeah, I'm sure what ended up happening was some Google grunt somewhere was going through about 60 videos an hour, and then they finally got to ours, and they just kind of looked at it for 5 seconds and then flipped the switch from off to on.
And God bless them. I hope that they make a Kimmy-like movie about them with Steven Soderbergh.
Yeah.
But just kind of catching up on the aftermath of the Batman, we'll start out with what our parting question was. So, who is the actor you would like to see play Batman?
Yeah, so for me, I was thinking about specific iterations of Batman, and the guy that I settled on was very popular actor Adam Driver.
Okay.
And I would like to see him play Batman from year 100. So, are you familiar with that?
It's a future Batman. Isn't that supposed to be Damian or something like that?
It's I think he's actually unnamed in the actual book, but it's set in the year 2039.
Nice.
And he's a descendant of Bruce Wayne. And this is a very, very stripped down version of Batman, even more so than Robert Pattinson's, where he's literally wearing gray long johns and boxing shorts, boxing trunks. That's his costume. And
different.
And he's very stripped down, and the one defining feature of Year 100 Batman is they focus in on sort of the animalistic nature of Batman, where he's kind of more animal than human, and he puts he's very ugly, and that's kind of why I thought of Adam Driver, because that guy's one ugly motherfucker. But in Batman Year 100, he puts in a pair of dentures that are like fangs whenever he goes out hunting.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's really
I'm
cool.
into that.
Yeah, it's I don't know if you're able to, but if you can pull up like maybe a picture of the Batman from Year 100.
Let me do that quickly.
Yeah, the art was done by Paul Pope, and
oh, that dude's weird.
Yeah, it's very strange, and I don't think you ever actually even see him without the costume on in the entire book. He stays as Batman the entire book.
Yeah,
and,
all I'm finding is a goofy ass cover, but I'm gonna pull it up.
Yeah,
just because it's cool, but it doesn't quite have the teeth. But
yeah, the teeth are kind of hard to find because he puts them in basically right before he surprises criminals. But yeah, the cover is really interesting because it's him like hunched over on like a building, I think.
Like this is exactly what I was finding. So Paul Pope, did he write it or did he do double duty?
Yeah, both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So
yeah, it's a really good story. It's only 4 issues, and I think Adam Driver, with kind of his seriousness and he has the ability to do broodiness. So I think he could do it.
And that voice too, like he talked like I'm just thinking about like his Kylo Ren voice, and I guess it's just how he talks all the time. It's just deep and bassy all the time. I could see him doing a lot with that, especially if he's being menacing.
Yeah.
I guess I went I feel like a little stereotypical with what I was even thinking about, but because I guess I was pretty specific, but I like Stephen Lang from Avatar. Oh yeah. You know, and I just like an old Batman. He's like the one guy I can picture doing something like that. God, why won't it let me get out of this full screen? I'm cursed now. Oh well. But I did have something pulled up where someone had mocked it up, like of him in the role, and I know he's way too old now. But if they were going to do a straight up like Dark Knight Returns, adaptation, have him do it. You know, like he's the one actor I can think of who has never sniffed, like a proper superhero role before. He's always just been a heavy in these kinds of conversations.
Yeah. Or even I could see him playing Thomas Wayne in
that works. Yeah. Instead of just going Jeffrey Dean Morgan like every other fanboy has been doing because of the Snyderverse. Oh dang it, I have to just close out because it's being a bitch. It just kept me locked in there. So bear with me here.
Yeah.
But I love that dude as an actor. And I just want to see him in something. I want him on the screen more and shit. And I could just see him delivering those lines. Or I could just hear him speaking them. As good as the animated, Dark Knight Returns, is, I still think we need more from that. Like I want to see someone just make that whole thing and keep it true to like the 80s weirdness. I want like the gangs to all be fucking weird, like to have swastika pasties and shit. But more Batman news along with that, because the aftermath of the Batman continues. We get to finally close the door on the Joker appearing again in a movie, because that was just for fun, apparently.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But...
Yeah, because I guess the slash film headline says "Don't assume," which could mean anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So the exact quote on this, I was looking at it, and Reeves' exact quote is, "It's not an Easter egg scene. It's not one of those end credit Marvel scenes where it's going, hey, here's the next movie. I have no idea when or if we would return to that character in these movies."
Huh.
So that's what he said. And
why be so mysterious about it? Like,
yeah,
give us something to work with.
I think this might be because I've noticed, I've been reading a lot of Matt Reeves interviews lately, and he is very careful about how he says things, and he's very political about how he says things, not stepping over and not giving away too much. And I think there might be some a little bit of hint in this quote where I think the Joker is going to actually show up in one of these shows before he shows up in the next movie, if he shows up in the movie at all.
Okay, so they have plans, basically, and they don't want to show their cards too soon, one way or another.
I think so, because just the way that he said that quote about how he specifically said, I have no idea when or if we would return to that character in the movies. So that's very odd that he would tack that on
in the movies. Yeah, because I guess they need him to be in the Penguin show.
Yeah, either that or actually what we're going to talk about next here.
Yeah, hang on, I just wanted to, there we go. I just wanted to make sure everything was working correctly again, because I'm having technical difficulties. I swear this won't happen all the time. But, yeah. Because Gotham PD series that they had announced, which has been a long-awaited, long-gestating concept, which was a really memorable series by Ed Brubaker, right? And I forget who did the art for it. Gotham City Central, rather.
Yeah.
But now it's just an Arkham Asylum show.
Yeah, this is kind of interesting too, because this once again to kind of say his quotes. He says, "Now we've actually moved on into the realm of what would happen if the world of Arkham, as it relates to coming off of our movie, some of the characters and their origins." And then he goes on to compare the show to a horror movie and a haunted house. So it's just like a serious house on serious earth, but like, I guess a little bit more focused on giving some meaty guest stars to celebrity actors looking to dip their toes in, maybe get a chance of being in the next movie or something. Mm-hmm. That could work. I feel like that could work. Yeah, and then this kind of dovetails into the last thing we were talking about, and I could totally see this being about the Joker's sort of early years, because the one thing that did kind of catch my eye about the one scene of the Joker that we got in the movie was, obviously he looks young because the actor that plays him is young. Very young. And he doesn't seem like he's quite at like that Joker status yet. Like, when of the little that you can see of Barry Keoghan, he doesn't seem like he's in like any sort of makeup or his skin is dyed or anything like that. He just seems like a regular dude who has a really weird laugh, basically. Like, did he kind of look disfigured to you? Like, yeah, he did. Yeah. He did look like he had some like scars on his face or something. Yeah. But, like he got mauled by a cat or something like that. But that does kind of make, because I have seen some like fan casting ideas or just rumors in general that like Anna Taylor-Joy is going to be the new Harley. Okay. To his Joker. And I mean, I guess they're both pretty young, but at the same time, I'm Harley'd out, man. I'm Jokered out too, if I'm honest with you, which is why I was not enthused to see the character show up in any capacity. But I guess that just and that we can jump off to the final little thing. Like, I guess I could say I was right. Like, that whole end credit thing was just an alternate reality game. Mm-hmm. What? We don't know. But yeah, what have we learned since about this thing? Yeah, so it kind of led to a website that had a bunch of puzzles and riddles on it, and up until Friday, there was a percentage counter that was slowly counting up from 0 to 100%.
Mm-hmm.
And on Friday, it hit 100%. And when that happened, the page changed, and there's now a message on the site. It's actually Rata Alada, which is one of the riddles.
Okay.
Yeah, it's one of the riddles from the movie. And now that the website has changed, what it says is, "You've come this far. Now let's see if you're willing to discover more. While you unmask everything that has yet to be revealed, I'm safe here with my new friend. We'll see you soon."
And I'm just like reading this thing. There's also like a bunch of series of numbers that correspond to the dates and like issue numbers of the first appearance of specific characters, which is kind of interesting, but it's all just characters from the Batman movie. So, but this article seems to, I guess they threw the Hush image at me and got me excited. But I don't actually think that that's where it's going.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, because I mean, obviously the quote is clearly referencing the Riddler and the Joker
just hanging out.
Yeah, just hanging out in Arkham, and yeah, I mean, this is really cool. I really like this kind of stuff. And if you'll remember, Matt Reeves' first movie, Cloverfield, had one of the most legendary ARG games ever.
It did. Yeah.
It was so awesome. And I followed that thing the entire time. And it just like, they set up so many things for that movie, like fake companies and like fake MySpaces for all the characters in the movie. And it eventually led to you figuring out what caused the monster to appear in Cloverfield. I don't know if you remember that, but
so I guess I didn't realize it went that in depth. I just thought it was just a delivery mechanism for a trailer to create viral buzz.
Well, do you know about the satellite in Cloverfield?
Is that
a satellite that crashes into the ocean?
Does that happen in the movie?
Yeah.
I guess I didn't remember that detail.
Yeah, it's really cool because they kind of hide it. There's a scene in the movie where two of the main characters are at Coney Island and they're on like the Ferris wheel.
Yeah.
And in the background, you can see a satellite crash into the ocean, and that's the thing that like awoke the monster.
Because the subsequent sequels that were never intended to be sequels, they almost insinuate that like a hole in reality got opened up, and that's what brought Cloverfield in. Unless I'm misunderstanding what those movies were about. I
think that's right. I think because the satellite thing, I think, is what just the monster was in the ocean, and the satellite was the thing that like woke it up, basically.
I see. Okay.
So
it was all just an accident.
Yeah, pretty much. So, but yeah, it was so legendary, and if they can string this one along until like the next thing, that would be so incredible. Like for months on months, that would just be crazy.
It would be a lot of fun. And I don't know, I even think that, and this might be something that, more small scale productions like Cloverfield should do it. But like they should even have the movie be distributed via the ARG. Really reward it. It's like you get to see this movie before theaters do, but you unlock what the movie even actually is. But yeah, you'd have to. I just remember like 9 Inch Nails' ARG for their Year Zero album was really fucking cool at the time. There literally was because the conceit was that album was bleeding through time from the future as like a warning to us today about the world we could live in. And if you went to like a specific gathering where like this person who said they were from the future was like giving like a protest speech, and then jackboot thugs literally raided and arrested everybody in the venue, things like that I'm really into. Like beyond just like what was it, I Heart Bees was the Halo 3 one. Where it just involved a lot of participation and like specific goals to be met. Like alternate reality games are a lot of fun, and you can do a lot with them, beyond just like instigating an insurrection at the Capitol, which is if you ever watch the Q documentary, they kind of break down the connective tissue between Q and these alternate reality communities, and it's kind of neat. But moving on from that, more Warner Brothers news. We finally have some casting announcements for Dune Part II, and they're kind of fun. Princess Irulan is going to be played by the Scream Queen herself, Florence Pugh. And Austin Butler, soon to be Elvis. He's also going to be Feyd-Rautha. And honestly, pretty down for the casting of him as Feyd-Rautha. He's got that pretty boy. He's got those beautiful lips. He's exactly what the Baron would keep around, because there's always this weird incesty vibe between those two characters. So sure. I'm here for that, especially if they put him in like a winged thong bikini like they did Sting or something to that effect. Florence Pugh, the Irulan is kind of a thankless role in this story unless they really give her a lot more to do. Because the sci-fi miniseries went out of their way to make Princess Irulan matter more. They gave her a lot more interactions with Paul before everything pops off. Like the current movie skips over this large section where she is present, where the Emperor sends her as like an emissary, and there's like a big feast and a ball. But as like a sign to set everyone at ease, like, oh, nothing's gonna happen. His daughter's on Arrakis, and then of course everything happens that night. But in the novel, Irulan is mostly present as like in these epigraphs where there's like selections from a book she wrote about Muad'Dib or about Paul after the fact. So it's curious to see what they'll do with her. But I get the vibe from everything that they're saying that they intend to really boost the females as much as they can in these roles as characters. And that's probably what they'll do. But yeah, we still don't know who's going to be the Emperor Shaddam IV. And my dream casting is Mads Mikkelsen. Honestly, if I could pick anybody, he'd be my man. Because it's unless they give him more of a role than he has in the books and like write a lot of things for him to do, he's basically just going to be there for like a few scenes at the end.
Who played the Emperor in the other adapted versions? Do you know?
He's a familiar name. He's an Italian actor. Let me just pull it up here quick.
Is he in both the David Lynch movie and the miniseries?
In the David Lynch movie, he was like there at the beginning of the movie. I can't remember the actor's name, but in the 2000 miniseries, it was Giancarlo Gianni is the actor's name. He was in Quantum of Solace and Casino Royale. He was like, that dude. I think Rene Mathis was his character in those movies.
Yep. Yeah, his sort of James Bond's French friend who's sort of like his handler, kind of.
Yeah. And he did a pretty good job, honestly. And now that I have a DVD player, I can actually go back and watch the director's cut of the sci-fi miniseries that they made, which is like 5 hours long, and might be worth checking out just to see how others have done it before you kind of get to see what Villeneuve will do. But I got my parents, I had to walk them through installing HBO Max on their TV so that they could watch it. They made it through the first hour and then they went to bed. And then they finished it the next day, but they did like it. So that made me happy to know that they... un momento.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I was just... I have no, way to place any of this, so I added this on here because I was strictly curious on your opinions on this casting news, because I have absolutely no compass when it comes to these two characters. So.
Yeah, and that's what's kind of neat about it is that these characters are very much just flavor text throughout most of the stories, and the fun can come out of what do they give them to do, beyond what is written. And I don't really know Austin Butler as an actor, but I've seen that trailer for Elvis like 17 times, and I can just see him owning the part, because there's a fun sequence where he's in a gladiator fight, in the second half of Dune, and you almost think he's gonna die in that moment, but of course he's a sneaky, sly bastard, and he finds a way to win, and there's lots of mind games between him and his uncle. But yeah, we'll have to see. And it's at least encouraging to put some faces to these characters, because they were delightfully, mysteriously left completely out of part one, which I think added to what worked about that movie on its own, was the ambiguity and the absence of a great deal of the flavor text of that world, even though it does make it kind of hard for people with no connective tissue to it to understand exactly what's going on sometimes. But you can't have it all. You can't just literally have the David Lynch exposition dump that takes 15 minutes, for every movie that is made. But it is what it is. But moving on from news, theatrical releases, a big fat dud yet again. We did get, our, main topic of the night, via streaming on Disney Plus. But HBO Max came in pretty hot, for us as well, because we got to finally see the long-awaited story of sex and basketball in the 80s. That is Winning Time, or as I call it, why is Adam McKay like this? Because I'll just briefly give my initial take on the first 10 minutes of this was, I fucking hate this. But the back end of it, after they got through all that initial where he and his editor just jerk each other off, for those first 10 minutes, it finally just kind of settled in, and they started telling a very, kind of serious and genuine, story that did a good job of delivering the first, your two main principles and all the different, the real human beings, but all the real characters that are a part of this story. And by the end of it, they had won me over completely, and I look forward to seeing the next episode of it. What did you think?
Yeah, I liked it. I kind of liked it for the same reasons you did. I like the characters. Some of the writing's pretty good. Some of the individual scenes are good. What I hated about it was the constant breaking of the fourth wall.
Yeah.
As kind of Adam McKay is, that's his thing now, I guess.
Yeah, ever since The Big Short. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, oh God, just the fucking changing film grain all the time.
I was going to point that out. It was obnoxious. You go from having pristine, modern, streaming 4K quality to all of a sudden you're literally seeing a Super 8 film, of these same characters in the same scene, and it just does that for a single shot.
Yeah, it changes almost as much as it changes camera angles, and it's modern day. It's 4K, 16 millimeter, 8 millimeter, Betamax, every 5 seconds. And then there's some shots where they artificially put the film sprockets on the side of the screen, and it's my God, that looks so terrible, and that was bad. And yeah, like you said, it's just it's Adam McKay, just complete wankery, so indulgent and for no reason, and it was very distracting. And there are some individual scenes that I like in this, the scene at the party where Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar have their one-on-one match.
That wasn't Kareem. Oh. That was Norm Nixon.
Oh, Norm Nixon. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
There was not enough Kareem in this episode, I would say.
That was really good though. I like that scene a lot. And some of the stuff with I can't remember her name, but the woman who plays like the secretary at the office.
Yeah.
She's good.
She's good. And I forget the actress's name, but she was in Sleepless in Seattle as a child actress. I think it's Gabby Hoffman. It's Gabby Hoffman. Yeah.
Yep.
I was really surprised to see her in this playing such a mature character, because in my mind, she's not that old, but I guess she is in her 40s now. Mm-hmm. But yeah, other than that, I do want to really point out that we should be grateful that Will Ferrell wasn't playing Jerry Buss, because the character would not work. You know, John C. Reilly is just such a genuine, sweet dude, in as his persona is, but the character would not be as endearing if it was just Ron Burgundy up there, because that's the tone it would have. If it, you know what I mean, like it, because that's the tone that all that fourth wall breaking kind of gives it. You know, it gets really frustrating, like all of his little Adam McKay's indulgences. And the show soars when he takes a step back, and it's just, what were these two dudes trying to do, and what were they going through? You know, the courtship of Magic Johnson to, be okay with going to LA, and just all the finagling that Buss had to do to financially be able to pull this off. And yeah, it ended up being quite a bit of fun, and not as lame as I thought it was going to be. And I've been looking forward to watching a new episode all week. But it also really made me want to watch the 30 for 30 documentary about the Celtics-Lakers rivalry, which is called Best of Enemies. It's like 4 or 5 hours long, well worth checking out. Covers the early history where Jason Clarke playing Jerry West. I love the rage that character has when he plays him. Because it's real, like, in the hype reel for the season, we're gonna get to see what's his name, the guy from The Shield, Michael Chiklis. Is gonna be I'm blanking all these stupid names. The Celtics coach, and at the time he was the GM, the guy with the cigar. That was Michael Chiklis, and it was really unclear what was. Like, what is archival footage and what is them putting actors in their place? But the dude that they have as Larry Bird is perfect. And the little clip of him, like, spitting into a can wearing a baseball cap, I was just like, okay, they're gonna make him the hick from Deer Lick, but that's who the dude was. Even though it's gonna be such a homer fest for the Lakers, and that's okay. That's their story. They did win more titles and everything. But what did you think about them starting the whole thing out with Magic Johnson finding out he had HIV?
I thought it was pretty good. That was another scene where, I didn't think... I mean, the tone would have been so off if Adam McKay would have done all that fucking shit he's doing the rest of the episode. Yeah. So that scene was pretty grounded. And, it's interesting because... it's going to kind of give, because this show, I know, from the outset, I mean, from the John C. Reilly's first scene, the show's going to have a lot of sex in it. Mm-hmm. And so I'm sure we're going to get plenty of scenes of Magic Johnson having sex. So it's going to kind of put a very odd feeling on those scenes, because it's like, in the back of your mind, you're thinking like, oh, is this like the time? Is this like when he got AIDS, or like, is this when he got HIV? And it puts a weird sort of picture in your mind to start the show off.
Exactly. It had that same feeling when I was watching Straight Outta Compton too, with like Eazy-E's situation. Because they celebrate the debauchery, they put it front and center. It's why they're why these times were memorable. Because it was just freewheeling fun. They did whatever the fuck they wanted, and they got whatever they wanted. And he's the biggest dick in LA, although every woman has eyes for him. Yeah, it's going to be kind of interesting how they showcase that. Because speaking of 30 for 30 yet again, there's a whole documentary just about his announcement that is also kind of a neat, like, they'll probably see that at the end of this series when it's all said and done. But for a show about basketball, I did enjoy how there was no basketball in this first episode. But I do kind of wonder how they're going to show that. How they're going to shoot it is because sports movies can be really, really hit or miss. Like, if you've ever tried to rewatch, like, Remember the Titans or anything like that, it's pretty cringy how they showcase that kind of stuff in retrospect. And I don't know if sports movies have really gotten any better. I didn't see the LA Rams movie about.
Oh God!
Yeah, I didn't see that. Kurt Warner. I skipped that movie because every time they showed football playing in a trailer, I just wanted to die because they just made the stands black, and I don't know if that's realistic or not. But I don't know. Weird. It's weird. But this was fun. This gets a hearty recommendation. And I was going to talk about Drive My Car. It is on HBO Max, but a young lady was upset for most of today, so I didn't get to actually watch this. I'll talk about it next week, but for those of you who were here and heard Matt talk about it, now is your chance to see it on HBO Max. It's 3 hours long. If you made it through the Batman, you can make it through this. But you were able to watch a little movie called Red Rocket.
Yeah, so this is the latest from Sean Baker, and I rented this one, and this is about a kind of down on his luck, aging porn star who decides to move back to a small Texas hometown after he runs out of money in LA. And this is a really interesting movie because I think it's more interesting than I actually liked the movie. Like it has a lot of very it's got some moral things going on in it that I'm not sure how I exactly feel about. And that's the thing about Sean Baker is he populates his films with people who wouldn't usually be main characters in movies and people living some, sort of like the dregs of society and people living, alternative lifestyles as some people would call them. And this is no different. It's basically, the first half of the movie is basically just Simon Rex, trying to figure out how to make money. And then he starts dealing weed for his neighbor. And you're kind of like, where is this going? And then he meets, a girl at a donut shop named Strawberry, and that's where the kind of weird morality of the movie comes in, where he basically starts a relationship with her, and she's only 17, and basically the movie's the movie makes it clear that in Texas 17 is considered legal. So they go out of their way to say that in the movie. And but the really weird thing is basically, I don't want to spoil the whole thing, but he basically starts grooming her to bring her back to LA to become a porn star with him.
Oh, yikes.
Yeah. And
that's a big fat yikes, but yeah, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very interesting. And I'm not really sure, I don't usually have a problem with movies if they don't take a particular stance on an issue, if it's just using that as a plot device and it's not putting any sort of positive spin on it, I'm fine with that. I'm not easily offendable, but this is one I still don't know how to feel about because it doesn't really go out of its way to condemn any of his actions either. So yeah, it's just very interesting.
And that is a spicy topic in this day and age, but I guess the filmmaker's purview is these are real things. These are a lot of real people who don't get a lot of thought by the majority of society, which is why they're so marginalized. And it's just a more and more of a common tale these days for young people of both genders to be kind of subtly preyed upon, even if they are close enough to the age of majority that they can make their own decisions. It's how many it's kind of not talked about enough, but social media like TikTok and platforms like OnlyFans are a pipeline for each other. And during the pandemic, there was an epidemic of minors, basically doing the OnlyFans, knowing that they were creating child pornography, essentially. And now eventually, having that as their career today, because now they're old enough, and I don't know, it's skeezy. It makes you feel gross, but it's a common tale. And this is a movie I've been meaning to watch. And but just like the Florida Project, these are just stories that, I guess should be told. And Baker's the one to do it.
Yeah, for sure. And I have a feeling, like I said, it's worth watching just for you're never going to see anything like it. And I have a feeling that because of all that stuff that I talked about, it's kind of the reason why this movie hasn't hit as hard as his older movies. Because
it's problematic. It's not about a single mom doing what she can.
Yeah, because Tangerine was such an underground hit. Mm-hmm. And then Florida Project was an absolute smash. And I think this could have had the possibility to be even bigger than Florida Project, just based solely on the fact this is, the next Sean Baker movie. And then people found out about
what it was about.
And then suddenly it's just kind of this has gone so unnoticed. It's crazy. You won't find a lot of people talking about it.
Which is surprising because it did have the push. It did have some buzz, but leading up to it actually coming out. But when you just have a trailer, it doesn't give you everything. It doesn't give you all the warts. It just gives you the honey, something to lure you along, groom you into becoming an audience for this movie. Since I wasn't able to watch something new, I have some old news to bring up in the Mentionables this week. And it was a movie that I first heard about from my parents, if you can believe that. My mom, I forget why it came up, because we would sit down and have conversations with them after supper sometimes and be like, what did you do in college? Or what was your first experience with X or Y? And my mom's first pot experience, I'm sorry, Peg, I'm going to tell this story, was in college. And she smoked a joint and she watched Deliverance.
Oh,
and
gosh.
She said it made the movie she said it was one of the most awful experiences of her life. She never wants to think about the movie again. And before I saw the movie, I read the book. I got it from the public library. So I knew what I was getting into with this little movie when I first saw it as a kid, but seeing it in 4K was pretty cool, actually. The photography is still gorgeous. That rape scene is still harrowing, and I never picked up on all the ass slapping that was happening to poor Ned Beatty in that movie. And nor did I appreciate that Ronnie Cox is in this. The bad guy from RoboCop and Total Recall. This was his debut, in acting. And still just an awesome movie. Burt Reynolds and Jon Voight are awesome. And just the fact that these actors were the ones in those canoes, because this was an uninsured shoot. And I didn't realize that, until I looked up the wiki on this a little bit, because there is a line in the beginning where they're shitting on Ned Beatty's character for being an insurance salesman, and Burt Reynolds' character is like, insurance, I haven't been insured all my life, as they're just barreling down these country roads. So these guys knew that they were doing something crazy, and you hear some of the names of the people who they wanted to be in this, Robert Redford and the like. You can't imagine anybody being in this movie than the dudes who were in it. And well worth checking out if you have HBO Max and you want to watch a solid little, action drama from probably the best decade of Hollywood filmmaking that, to some people they would call it that. The 70s are the gold standard.
For sure.
Yeah. Have you seen this lately?
Not lately, no. I probably over 10 years ago now, but it kind of makes me want to watch it. You said, is it in 4K on HBO Max?
At least, like, it was. I watched it on a 4K TV. Who knows with HBO Max if something is actually in 4K? Because half the time you're just like, God damn, that looks grainy, and I don't think it was intentional, you know. Yeah. But circling back to Winning Time, like when I was watching it with Angie, she was squinting at the TV half the time, being like, "What is wrong with my TV? Why does it look like shit?" And I had to be like, "They're doing this on purpose." So a different experience. I wish it was actually on 4K. We did put the first season of Sopranos DVD in there, and the upscaler did not do a good job. It did not do a good job.
That's in 4:3 too, isn't it?
It is.
First season of Sopranos.
Yes, it is. Did not turn out too well, but Deliverance still looked gorgeous at the very least. Yeah. But now we're moving on to the main event, the surprisingly controversial, new latest from Pixar and Disney. A little story about puberty and family and tiger moms, something that everybody can relate to, but it's a little movie called Turning Red. Where did this come from? What is the genesis of Turning Red?
Yeah, so this is the feature directorial debut of Domi Shi, who did the much-loved Pixar short Bao. And this is her first feature movie, and obviously I think she takes a lot of inspiration from her actual real life, because I believe she is Chinese and
Torontonian.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of where it came from. And I guess just to kind of start us out, I'm just kind of curious, just to kind of get a feel for things. What do you consider your sort of gold standard for Pixar films? Like, what's your like top tier?
The Incredibles, Up, and I would have, and other than that, I don't really have any that, like, I know Toy Story is all well and good, Monsters Inc. is all well and good, but those two movies are the ones that I keep coming back to, and I guess, yeah, like, they were very specific in what they were about, I guess, but they still just focused on very universal themes, ultimately. And then they had really, fun and goofy things, and they had high adventure in them at the same time. I'm fine with, like, a heightened reality. I'm fine with some magical realism. And those are the Pixar movies that I think of when I think of Pixar.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, for me, I would probably say Ratatouille and Coco would probably be my favorites.
Those are solid too. Mm-hmm. I forgot about Ratatouille until you just brought it up. But like that's in that tier too, I would say. And Coco, that movie makes me bawl like a baby every time I see it. And that movie is fucking gorgeous. And it looks incredible. Yeah. But I guess if there's something that all good Pixar movies have, it's they tug at my heartstrings. Mm-hmm. If you are a good Pixar movie, you will make me cry, yeah. and I can cry easily if if it really is working. And this one did not make me cry, I have to say, when it came down to it. But it did do a lot of what you would expect a Pixar movie to do, but it did a lot of things I did not expect from a Pixar movie. But I think that is, because like you compare this to a movie like Luca, which is, very culturally specific, and did a flip on the Little Mermaid, essentially, gender flip on the Little Mermaid, and tried to make it more culturally Italian more than anything else, and I don't know, like the things about this that didn't really work for me was like how horny it was. Not to get too spoilerific about it, but yeah, it's a movie about puberty, so that's a given. It's bound to happen. Like, this is essentially just the the Chinese Canadian version of Teen Wolf, which is an obvious comparison to make. And for the most part, it works, but there's a lot of weird like animation choices that you don't normally see from a Pixar movie, like it makes it obvious that it's like a cartoon. It almost reminded me of Cal Arts aesthetics. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, do you mean like the anime eyes and stuff like that?
Yeah, and like where like the dollar bills would show up on their eyeballs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Like it almost looked like an Illumination animation movie less than a Pixar movie at times. And that was to its detriment. Like instead of like it almost could have been like a Studio Ghibli sort of vibe with like the subject matter it had. I almost wish that Studio Ghibli had done a story like this, because it might have felt more authentic. Because I guess what cheapens this is the desire by the filmmaker to make this literally about the childhood she had, by setting it in the early 2000s, having a multicultural gang of girls wanting to go to a boy band show. But I did appreciate how they literally wrote songs, like legit songs for the boy band in this for Town. But yeah, like if we're gonna be honest, this is just like Tina Belcher from Bob's Burgers does this kind of thing better than this movie did. And that's what I thought of the whole time, was just like, ooh, this is just Tina Belcher with her friend fiction, her erotic friend fiction. But they didn't go far enough at times. I don't know. I just didn't care. It just kind of turned into a slog. I understand why certain film critics felt exhausted by this movie, because I was too. Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I thought there was a certain like cheapness to the animation. Like when you hear that the people who made this movie, a lot of the animators were pissed that Disney put this on Disney Plus instead of theaters. Yeah. And I totally understand why they did that, because even just watching it, you're looking at it and you're like, this looks cheaper than a typical Pixar movie. It doesn't, the style, and I don't mean like the actual animation, I mean that the design aesthetic, the stupid oblong shaped heads and the anime eyes with the little like drops of water in them. And, it looked kind of cheap. And then, I mean, the horniness of it is sort of weird, because I mean, go back to kind of what you were talking about when we were talking about the Sean Baker movie. Is there's that scene where, I guess I'm going to get into spoilers now, so if anybody hasn't seen, but there's that scene where they literally do like an OnlyFans for the panda. Yeah, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? And it's like, it's literally like they're selling interactions and pictures with the panda, and that's all you can think of. I mean, it's so obvious that that's what it is, and it's just very strange. And the thing that makes it strange is that there are people out there in certain sections of the internet that are like rooting for this stuff to happen, who complain about how like sexless the Marvel movies are, and they kind of cheer this type of stuff on, even though it should just be it shouldn't be something that you have such a strong reaction to. It shouldn't be something that you're actively like, I want my kids' movies to be more sexy. That should not be a thing that you cheer for. Because you're an adult. So, like, this movie should not be made for you. It should be made for the kids. If you wanted an adult, computer animated, comedy movie, well, we saw how that turned out with Sausage Party. There's a reason why they don't make those things. And it's horny in the way that like a Tumblr furry is horny. This is the kind of thing that is just gonna, like, they had to know what the internet is gonna do with this poor character that is a 13-year-old girl in a panda form. Like, it's gonna be gross, and they had to know. Like, Disney has a Rule 34 division devoted to like removing as much of it as possible, or like there is literally a rule as an animator or like a designer working for Disney that if you draw shit like that, Disney owns it. You know, like they get to like snap it up somehow and put it in a vault so no one can see it. Okay. I don't really understand how it works, because it seems like the kind of thing that's just out there no matter what they do. But yeah, it just felt like the kind of thing I would expect to find on a furry board to begin with.
Yeah,
and
there's kind of there's kind of a flip side to that, where despite all this sort of weird horniness, it's a little bit ballsy of Disney to make movie about puberty and about periods, basically. And so I'll give them credit for that's very ballsy, because I'm sure out there on the exact opposite of the spectrum, somewhere out there's going to be some hyper religious parents that are going to be absolutely like gobsmacked by this movie. They're going to be fucking pissed.
Like, how dare Disney put this front and center? But they already kind of are. I forget what Disney Plus added to Disney Plus that was so shocking. There was a recent movie. I think it was actually that Flesh movie. That one about or Fresh. Yeah, I think for a little bit there, Fresh was on Disney Plus.
Because in like Canada, because in Canada there is no Hulu. It's literally just Disney Plus has everything.
American broadcasters. That's right. Okay. Yeah. Well, okay, so that explains that. But it is. But like the flip side of this is it's only charming that to like a lot of people, the subject matter of this, like the experience of a teenage girl going through puberty. It's a strange thing to put into what looks like a cartoon. This is like John Hughes material, basically, for in a different generation. But today, you could not make this movie about a horny boy, like a horny 13-year-old boy. Yeah. It would not work. So if you're gonna do something like this is how you would do it, and this is who you would do it for. There was just some things about it that just like about the era and like how the age of the director and the filmmaker behind this, where I was just like, I knew a lot of people from that time, like, who were in really weird places on the internet, and if they had the power to make a Disney Pixar movie, I kind of think this is the movie they would make.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's really, really strange, but I guess to kind of pivot a little bit, as far as like stuff that I kind of liked, specific scenes, I really liked the kind of how all like the old aunts and like the grandma showed up at the end, and they had their sort of like Power Rangers moment, where they all like threw down their piece of jewelry and then they turned into their like panda form.
Released their pandas. Yeah, that was fun. And go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead. I was just gonna say, that was, but I really like that.
But that's what like got confusing about the whole concept, was like, wait, there's an astral plane, like they're gonna have cosmic, and that's what beat her mom, was like dancing provocatively and like shaking her tail around, like all the things that would scandalize a tiger mom. What did you think about Sandra Oh as the mother in this?
I thought she was good. I mean, I honestly knew that Sandra Oh was in it, but I didn't really catch that it was her. I honestly thought that what Sandra Oh was gonna play the panda. Like once the girl turned into the panda, her voice was going to change to Sandra Oh's.
Yeah, that would have been obnoxious.
Yeah, but that's what I thought it was going to be.
Did you notice in the credits that they gave all three, like sometimes like three different credits for like playing the mom as a young lady, playing the mom's panda form. Like it was there was like there was three roles. Like they separated the panda and the human roles into like separate ones.
Okay.
I didn't understand why they did that.
Yeah,
but,
I don't know.
Yeah, because they're all the same character, ultimately. But yeah, and that's there were some things to like. When it comes down to it, there were certain things that just kind of struck me as strange for being a Pixar movie, which, like you pointed out, is probably why this was straight to Disney Plus and they didn't get to grace a silver screen, nationwide, which they could bitch and moan about if they want. But hey, at least you have a Disney credit, I guess. But this kind of feels like a middling effort when you break it all down and you pull it out of the water. This doesn't quite hold up to the gold standard of what a Pixar movie is, and maybe that's not the kind of thing we should expect every single time from Pixar now.
Yeah, I think it's just a little. I would definitely put this kind of in the lower echelon of Pixar films, but even then, it's still better than like 90% of animated stuff out there.
Yeah, that's very true.
Better than anything that DreamWorks can cook up and anything that Illumination can come up with. And
I'd rather watch this than any Minions movie, just to be clear.
Yeah, but I think it's just a little too like derivative for its own good and a little too like, I don't know, just a little too like meandering. It is an hour and 50 minutes, which I thought is pretty long for an animated movie. And
yeah, because there was the part where like there's the montage, they're making all that money, and then they realize they got the date wrong for when the concert is, and it's like a week away, and I was just like, holy fuck, there's like a week of time that they need to cover, and that's at like the 90-minute mark. And then everything pops off, and but I did enjoy, like I said, the pop music. It wasn't as satirical as Boys for Now is in Bob's Burgers, but that's like you say, it is a little derivative, and like they may not have been deliberately treading the same ground as Bob's Burgers, but Tina Belcher's been here already, man, and she's made me cringe even more than this movie did. But and I don't think they wanted to make it a cringy movie, and I don't think they think of it as a cringy movie, like the big proponents of this. And it absolutely is. So if you can stomach it and you can just embrace the awkwardness of your own teenage, rise up from a 13-year-old into an adult, you understand how awkward and awful it can be. So there is that relatableness to a point, but I don't think we should hold it against anybody to be like, oh, I don't think this movie has anything for me.
Yeah, and that's actually a good segue. You want to talk about the big controversy with this movie?
Like, seriously, the amount of articles written about this one thing is absurd and it's stupid. And usually I am reticent to defend anybody who will not defend themselves on culture war issues. And unfortunately, this is kind of culture war bullshit. File it there. But Sean O'Connell did nothing wrong, over at Cinema Blend. He wrote a very, I guess I would say, like, he really wasn't that jazzed about it, and his subtitle to his review literally is, "I am not this movie's audience," and it offended the people who just either support Disney blindly or support the message, the prevailing message that they support, or the vibe that they support. This is the crowd that still thinks Ghostbusters 2016 is a good movie, and they will not abide anyone even saying that this movie isn't amazing. He gave it 2.5 stars out of 5, and it was such a problem that he had to like delete it from the website and offer up his mea culpas, which I thought was kind of silly and stupid to do, because basically his whole beef with this movie was, I am not a Chinese 13-year-old living in Toronto in the early 2000s who was obsessed with a bucket hat wearing C-store employee to the point that I was drawing like mermaid porn in my notebook under my bed, and I think like maybe he needed to be a little bit more forgiving, because like 13-year-olds do all kinds of weird shit when they're dealing with puberty, no matter what their gender is. And, maybe, and it's an awkward place to go. And props to, I forget the name of the filmmaker behind this. What's her name again?
Domei Shi.
Domei Shi. Props to her for opening up what was surely kind of a dark place for her, in making this. But yeah, like he's hung up on Teen Wolf. He kind of just felt alienated by, how specific a lot of the storytelling was. But he got worn out in much the same ways I did. But you'd think he had said that Asian people were like monkey people or something, with how vitriolic people were towards this review. Like, if you're gonna tear your hair out, and start marching through the streets over something, figuratively, I know no one was actually doing that, but Twitter in internet outrage is the modern day version of that. And this movie did not deserve that kind of attention or defense. It should stand on its own merits. And, there was a lot of movies I liked back in the day that the prevailing culture had no interest in or time in. Like, I still think Zack Snyder's Watchmen is a good movie, but that's because I feel that way. But you're not going to convince anyone that you're right about that by trying to get them run out of their job, and to try and accuse him of being a racist or something. Because Snyder fanboys, are... I'm trying to think, because Armand White is a film critic I love because he just fucking pisses everyone off. And he went from baiting Nolan fanboys to baiting Snyder fanboys to now baiting Reeves fanboys. He just knows that he can just be like, this is shit, and people will link his reviews. And that's not what Sean O'Connell was doing here. He was being honest. And I don't think he said anything that I didn't say, after I saw it. It's just stupid that is what they're writing about. You can't just champion the movie and talk about the things you liked about it. You have to try and tear somebody down because they didn't completely love the movie the same way that you loved it. It's silly. Yeah, it's kind of... I guess if he made any sort of mistake, I think it's just kind of basing sort of an entire review on that fact. I mean, I think that's true.
What he said, his sort of observation that the movie isn't made for him, is kind of it's kind of an interesting observation, but it's not something you should base an entire review off of, in my opinion. And it also invites a lot of scrutiny, because now what these fucking psychos are going to do they're going to go back to his old reviews and they're going to be like, how were you able to relate to Mad Max Fury Road? Then you're not like a chrome addict. Like, how can you relate to that? And it's just inviting a lot of scrutiny, like stupid whataboutism and stuff like that. But I think, but it's not his fault. It's the fault of the crazy people on, I hate this term, but I'm going to use it, on film Twitter. I fucking hate that term so much, but people use it a lot to describe these idiots. But it should just be, if you disagree with it, you should, it doesn't have to be a big thing. Like, you should be content with looking at the webpage, being like, oh, that's a dumb take, and then moving on with your life. Yeah, exactly. It's like, why does this guy's opinion, all these people that are freaking out, I bet they didn't even know who the Sean O'Connell guy was the day before. I know I didn't. I'm not going on Cinema Blend for any reason most of the time. Yeah. So why does his opinion suddenly hold so much weight for you because you disagree with it so much? It doesn't make any sense to me, Yeah, very silly, and it's a waste of energy. But it's how people's energy has been harnessed by the platforms and systems of the internet. We're all just addicts to our dopamine hits, and some people get their dopamine hits by fighting these stupid fights on the internet. And it's
it's unfortunate that like your whole livelihood can hang in the balance, and it kind of pollutes the, not that there was a lot of purity to film criticism to begin with, because it always is ultimately about how can I get my name out there and how can I get people to like me so I can get invited to things and to continue to be invited to things, to continue to have scoops given to me. That kind of contractual journalism that is baked into all journalism these days. And yeah, we're far away from Roger Ebert literally, just writing books about how much he fucking hates movies. Because you don't dare say that you hate something unless it's safe to hate it, basically. And it is not safe to go after a person of color making a Pixar movie. It's not safe. If you're gonna go if you're gonna go hard in any way, you should be principled about it. Focus on the film itself and do your best to not bring your identity into the equation, I guess, is like avoid identity politics as much as possible. Because as a Pixar movie, like I've been pointing out, it does delve into universal things, but everybody has a different version of what this young girl experiences in this movie. Everybody had that dark, gross thing they didn't want anyone to know about that they were up to because they were just trying to figure themselves out, basically. And yeah, nobody wants their mom to find it and then bring it out in public, which is the most mortifying concept possible. So honestly, I don't heartily recommend this, but if your child is old enough to kind of relate, definitely have them watch it. But I don't know if exposing young kids to this is the right way to go. It's not quite like being able to put on Moana, for a bunch of toddlers because it's got pretty colors. And maybe all that they would get out of it is the cute panda, So what do I know?
Yeah, it'd probably just all go over their head.
Exactly.
Yeah, actually, I guess to kind of cap us off, I had in my notes here, I was going to ask you, since you're the only member of this podcast that has a child in their household.
Yeah.
Did they watch with you or?
She was at daycare, actually.
Okay.
I was home alone cleaning, and because Fridays are my off day, I get a 3-day weekend at work for a little bit now until they change the schedule up. But I watched it alone, and it's funny, November, unless it's Bluey, she really doesn't give a shit. Okay. And like Angie and I could have almost anything on and she'll just toddle about doing anything else unless there's music. Like the music in Winning Time, she was here for it. She was she was dancing and stuff. But I think if I put this on for her, she'd probably watch it for 5 minutes and then move on with her life. She doesn't quite have the attention span yet. But sure. Speaking of, I'll just throw a shout out to Bluey. The other beauty of that show is that there's so many episodes of it that I haven't seen them all. And every single time I just press autoplay on the Disney Plus, it'll bring up something. I'll be like, I've never fucking seen this. And it'll be sandwiched between 2 episodes I have seen many times. Because that kid just likes having any old thing on. But yeah, I probably could put this on for her and all she'd care about is the big fluffy thing.
Okay, yeah. All right, yeah, I was just kind of curious about that. But yeah, I kind of say the same thing as you did, is just to kind of put a cap on it. I would recommend it, but there is a list of 10 other Pixar films that I would tell you to watch before this particular one.
And they're all on Disney Plus, man. That subscription still has its worth. And if it's going to be funding things like this, I'll shrug my shoulders, but you still have the back catalog. Even being able to pull up The Great Mouse Detective is a nice thing. And that's the beauty of having everything that was available forever. You don't necessarily need things that are being made now, but you would just hope that they would try and achieve that standard that we thought existed for them, or at least they're perceived to have. Because and it's not a knock against the filmmaker herself. I think it's a consequence of the era we live in. They can't quite give it the the grand like the writer's room, the genius room that the story team that Pixar generally has on these kinds of projects. I don't think that was present here. It seemed very much like an auteurish sort of Pixar movie where she got to do whatever the heck she wanted. And there really wasn't much pushback because there was a lot of weird choices that were uncharacteristic of what I would say the Pixar style is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
But that's just kind of, well, we really have to say about Turning Red. It is what it is. It's not worth causing a pogrom, against film reviewers or anything like that. But it's a serviceable hour and 50 minutes to distract your very young or to watch with your children who are going through very strange periods of their lives. But it did like now that I think about it, this was the Pixar version of Euphoria.
Oh God.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Only pandas. But coming out next week, we have another Sandra Oh performance in this thing called Uma. What do we know about Uma?
Yeah, not a whole lot. This is one of 2 theatrical releases this week, and this just kind of came out of nowhere, and it's from a first-time feature director, and my personal theory is that this is probably getting dumped, and this is not, they just kind of were looking to offload it in March because, they don't have a lot of faith in it, but I don't know, I could be wrong. As of right now, there aren't any reviews for it online, so which is also usually a bad sign, but I guess we'll see.
And this dude shows up and scares the bees. How dare he?
Yeah.
But the other, I guess, Deep Water, which is like I had mistaken a different movie for this one just because I gotten the titles mixed up. But this is Ben Affleck and Ana de Armas, right?
Yes.
Yeah. What the fuck is this? What is Hulu doing?
This movie is crazy. This has been in the can for like 4 years, and they
holy
just
shit! So this was back when they were fucking. Okay.
Yeah, this is the movie. This is the movie where they met, and they do not know what to do with this movie, and it's from Adrian Lin, who made all those erotic thrillers in the 90s.
It hasn't made a good movie in at least 30 years. Is the problem though?
Yeah.
Poor guy.
And so this is. I think they're finally kind of just dumping it on Hulu because it did have a theatrical release at one time, and I doubt it's going to be good. But it's kind of funny to see in hindsight, knowing now that they sort of broke up with a lot of animosity. So
it might be fun to watch it just to have the. Yeah, like you say, the hindsight of how bizarre this whole situation is. Mm-hmm. But yeah, definitely not something that I was interested in at all until I thought about it a bit more. But also coming out is the latest Ty West joint, which is also going to be our movie next week because guess what? It's in Minot, of all places. But it's a little film called X. Brittany Snow is in it. And it's about a porno shoot on a farm that goes way, way wrong, basically.
Yeah, it's kind of Texas Chainsaw Massacre mixed with, I don't even know, I guess like Lovelace or something.
Yeah,
but
and it's A24.
A24.
Back at it again, trying to make yet another horror movie of the year, attempt. But yeah, the trailer intrigued me, and the announcement intrigued me, but I just really want to know like where the fucked upness is going to come from, because they definitely hide a lot in this trailer that they put out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very excited.
And also we have, this was really surprising, I didn't even know that this was in development, but we're finally at long last getting Brian Wood's comic series adapted by fittingly, HBO Max. This was a Vertigo comic series, but DMZ, which, for those who don't know, was a pretty well-regarded Vertigo series about the fallout of like a stalled civil war in a modern United States, where the island of Manhattan is like where the fight stopped. So it's a demilitarized zone, and it's just about a character trying to find her son in the DMZ, try to sneak in, and it's going to be, fittingly, it's going to be a limited series, so it's not going to try to do more than what it can do. Even though there are like 60 issues for them to pull from, it looks like we're just going to get what we want to get out of it and nothing more. So little less than what Y the Last Man was trying to do and failed at. Like, yeah. They don't have to worry about getting a second season. They can just tell their story and be done with it.
Yeah, it looks. I'm familiar with the comic, but I've never read it, and this intrigues me because I didn't hear anything about this either until like a couple weeks ago. So
and then boom, suddenly it's there.
Yeah, and Benjamin Bratt's in it.
And that's the thing. I never actually read it myself beyond like the first like 4 issues.
Okay.
And I don't see that first 4 issues in this, because the original, like the original comic is just about this photographer who's flying in a helicopter. He was supposed to be like taking aerial photos of the DMZ, and his helicopter gets shot down and he crashes in it, and he has to survive. And it's just about him being a journalist, staying there and telling the stories of the people who live there. And this looks a little bit more actiony, I guess, yeah. And a totally different story than what I got out of it. But I spent a lot more time with Brian Wood's Vikings series, Northlanders, than I did this one. But this was the big one that he made his name on.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Apple TV Plus is coming in hot with another corporate drama. I think we've talked about this a little bit, but it's We Crashed, starring Jared Leto and Anne Hathaway. And my goodness, does this look fun.
Yeah, the latest in a series of self-indulgent accents for Jared Leto. But I mean, at least he's not caked on a bunch of makeup. I mean, it's, for the most part, it's just his normal face. But this looks interesting. Did you ever see the documentary series about this?
I guess I didn't. I did watch the Cold Fusion. He's a YouTuber I've talked about before. Okay. And so it's just a very staid YouTube documentary, just using footage that is available and stock footage and stuff. Who made that documentary?
Hulu.
Hulu did. Okay.
Yeah, it's very similar to they kind of follow the same sort of template for their documentary series, and this one's very similar to like the LuLaRoe one about the.
Oh yeah.
But it is an interesting story, so I'm kind of interested to see how they adapt it, because it is also a limited series. So thank God they're not trying to like draw it out into a multiple seasons.
You can't. There's not enough to the actual story.
Yeah,
because this is just what's fascinating about these modern tech fraudsters, basically, is how they're able to convince themselves and then everyone around them and then people with billions of dollars to buy into these ideas that literally make no sense if you think about them for more than a second, and are just driven by the charisma of the people behind them and what they say is going to be possible by giving them everything they want, and this particular story about WeWork is the ultimate example of that, because when you actually sit down and you think about what this company was about, it's amazing that they lasted as long as they did.
Yeah, for sure.
But that kind of covers the bulk of the show. We do have a parting question from you. It does come with some sad news. For those that don't know, the great actor William Hurt passed away. I didn't actually read how he died. Did they reveal that?
he had actually been, I think, battling some form of cancer for the last year or so that had spread to his, I want to say his bones.
Ooh, yeah.
So,
no coming back from that.
Yeah. But yeah, just so we're kind of thinking about William Hurt, and the question this week is going to be, what's your favorite William Hurt role? Because there's many to choose from, and there are even more great roles. So there's there's a lot out there. I was looking at his IMDb today, kind of in preparation for this question, and I have about 8 or 9 that I have on a short list right now.
That's the thing. Like he whether he was the lead or he like literally shows up for a scene, he's just one of those actors where you were like, oh shit, Billy Boy's on the scene. I gotta pay attention. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this circles back to Dune because he was my original Leto Atreides, in that sci-fi miniseries. It's like he.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But not that like that's not like what I think I'm gonna pick, but like that's just how prolific and far flung his career was. Like you said, his IMDb is just vast, and he's just one of those guys. It's like losing like Bill Paxton, or somebody like that. Like the whole tapestry of Hollywood is just lessened every time we lose one of these people, and it'll be kind of bittersweet to say goodbye to him next week when we reveal our picks.
Yeah.
But that just about does it for From the Mezzanine this week. We covered, like not as much ground as we have before, but it was still, there was a lot of worthwhile things to talk about, and next week brings even more. I think Raised by Wolves is nearing its end, so maybe like that might be relevant, when it gets down to it. But streaming continues to give us shit, and we finally have a reason to go to a theater again. So I'm excited, especially if it's going to be a schlocky gore fest. But we'll throw some links onto the description for Matt's Facebook, so you can check out his thoughts on a whole variety of stuff before you watch the show every week. And thank you once again for joining us, and thank you, Matt.
Yep. See ya.
Have a good night, everybody.